Welcome back to the Programming Fundamentals course. In our second week, we're going to look at some simple things called variables and creating objects. So the first program we're going to look at today or the only program I'm going to look at in this video anyways, is a very simple one that's going to allow us to read some input from the keyboard, and we're going to add two numbers together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to File, New Project, and you can see it's a Java project, Java application, and here, under the project name, I want to call it read and add numbers. Okay? So we should always give the project a useful name, something that's related to what it does. And once that's done, you'll see that it creates our template here. It gives us just a template of a program. The first comments tell you how to change that template, which we don't care about. And here I'm going to say this program will read two numbers from the keyboard, add them, and display the result. So, you know, in a really simple context, this is sort of like we're going to build a very basic calculator of sorts that can only add two numbers. Very basic type of thing, two whole numbers at that. So what we have here is we have the definition of the class. This is line 9 here. This is the definition of the class. So public means that it's accessible to everyone. Class is a special keyword, meaning this is the start of our class definition. And the name of our class is read and add numbers, and it is case sensitive. Okay? Classes always start with an uppercase letter, and methods always start with a lowercase letter. So we're just going to work in the main method today, and the main method has a special header. All methods have the same style of headers, but the main method has a very specific combination of public, static, void, keyword main, and the arguments here is an array of strings that is called args, or that's short for arguments. And in here it says, you know, put your application logic here. So as we go further into the course, we're going to talk about what's the difference between public, private, protected methods. What is static really doing for us? What's a return type? Okay, in this case, there's no return type. It's void. It's empty. And then the only thing that's really pertinent today is that this is the name of our method. So if we want to get the user to input two numbers into our computer, the first thing we need to do is we need to allocate space and memory to store those numbers. We'll work with a primitive data type called an integer. You're probably very familiar with them. An integer means that it has to be a whole number. It cannot be a decimal number. It can't be letters. It has to be just a whole number, like 1 or 10 or 12, 11. Those are all whole numbers. Minus 10 is still a whole number. So the data type of integer, to declare it, we type int. Okay, it's short for integer. And then we have to give a name for our variable. So I'm just going to call it number 1. Okay, the first number I get from the user. In fact, I can even call it first number. So let's call it that, first number. Now when you're using variables, the standard policy or practice is you give it a lowercase first letter, and if you want to put two words, if you want to kind of give a more, we give an uppercase letter for the start of each word. And I could declare another one that says second number. Okay. I don't have to give them an initial value. For now, all this is going to do is it's going to reserve space and memory to hold an integer. So if we wanted to ask our user for input, then what we're going to do is we're going to say system.out.print please enter a whole number to be summed. Okay, so what I've done here, system is a special keyword. Out means that it's going to go to the output stream. The two main output streams are usually going to be either to a file, to the screen, or to a printer. It depends on how you configure some of these things. And I'm using a method called print. And this method accepts a string as an argument. Okay? So a string is basically any set of characters inside of quotes. Okay? And an argument, you'll see every method has these brackets around them. That means I can input things into this method so that the method knows what to do. So at this point, if we were to run our program, it says, please enter a whole number to be summed. It prints this to the screen, and it's reserved space in memory for our integers, but it has no way of actually getting input from the keyboard. In order to do that, what we actually need to do is we need to create an object that will read from the keyboard. And thankfully, someone's already solved that problem for us. We don't need to really understand the inner mechanics of it. All we need to know is that there's an object that can do it. And the object is called a scanner object. So much like the integer, I define the data type, integer. In this case, it's going to be a scanner. And then I give it a name. And you should always give it a name that's related to what the variable or object is going to do. So here we said the first number and the second number, right, to be added. In this case, I'm going to get input from a keyboard. So I'm going to call it keyboard. You'll see in the textbook, I think they call it input. You could actually call it Fred or Barney if you want, but it's not really related to what the thing is. I like keyboard because I'm going to get information from the keyboard. And I'm going to say this is equal to a new scanner. So this is special. New is a special keyword in Java that tells you that we're creating a new object here. And you can see it. I put the brackets here, and it's expecting an argument. You have to tell the scanner where to look for information. So we're going to look at system.in. Okay. Standard input stream. And you can see it's still complaining. It's underlined it. Just like in Word, if you spelled the word wrong, it's going to underline it. So if I go over to the light bulb, it's going to tell me, if I hover over it, it says expected a semicolon. And at the end of every line of code, we need to have a semicolon to tell the compiler that we're done with our code. Now the next piece here is it still has something underlined. And if I go over here, it says I can't find this symbol. I don't know what the class scanner is. And the reason for that is it's only looking inside of this particular class, read and add numbers, for all of the methods and all the objects. So what we need to do is we need to go over to our light bulb. I'm going to left click here. And it'll actually give me all kinds of options. I can add an import, I can create a class, there's all kinds of things I can do. What I want to do is I'm going to add an import. And when I do that, you see at the top it actually added in this line of code for us. Okay? Import java.util.scanner. So what that does is it actually just sort of creates a little path so that this method and this class knows that it can use the scanner class, which is under the java.util directory. Okay. So now what I can do is I can say, well, the first number is going to be equal to whatever keyboard. Okay, so I'm now using my keyboard object here. And if I hit dot, it shows me all of the methods that will return something that can fit into this variable. So in this case, my variable is an integer, so I'm going to click on next int, right? So it says scans the next token of the input as an integer, which basically means it'll read the number that the user gives us. And it's complaining, so I'm going to add my semicolon at the end. So let's run this. So if we run that, it says enter a whole number to be summed. So you see, you have to kind of click into this area, and I can enter the number 45, and I can hit enter. And because we're not doing anything with it, it doesn't show us anything. But you see how the keyboard waited for us to enter a number, and as soon as we did, it said, okay, I'm done. Now if I don't put a number in here, if I put in like a string, such as the word hi, you can see it's going to blow up, because it's not expecting a string, it's expecting a number. We said, give me the next integer. Later in the course, we'll talk about how to handle that. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of code here that works well for printing the screen and reading from the keyboard. So I'm going to reuse that, and I'm just going to change the name here to the second number, right? So it's going to, we put the first input from the user here, and we're going to put the second input here. Okay, so that's what the goal of these variables is. They're just placeholders to store that information. Now the last thing we need to do is we're going to have to print this to the screen, right? So if I run this now, I can add in numbers like 5 and 8 or 9, but it doesn't do anything. I need to actually use this information. So I'm going to say system.out.print f. And the f gives it's a special method for formatted print. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say %d, because that is a placeholder. Okay, so I can substitute in an integer into wherever it says %d. So I'm going to say %d, the first number, plus %d for the second number is equal to the sum of them. And what I do here is if I put in a comma, now I just say first number, and it will look in the memory location that is held by first number. So let's say in this case I had a 5. It'll look in here and say that evaluates to 5, and it'll substitute a 5 into here. And then the second number we entered was a 9, so second number. It'll look in the memory location for second number, and it's going to put that into here. And then the last thing that we're going to have is the sum of them together. So I'm going to say first number plus second number. Okay, and then that's the semicolon. Okay, so now if we do this, we're going to enter number 5, number 8, and it says 5 plus 8 equals 13. So again, what we've done here is we've declared two variables. One's called first number, one's called second number. Their data type is int. We've created a scanner object. Okay, so there's the scanner, and we had to import that library. We gave it a name of keyboard, and we initialize it to look at system.in. And then we've read from the keyboard. We looked specifically for integers and stored the information in first number, and we've stored the second number and second number. And then this print statement, it's formatted print, so it's looking for these special characters, right? So I'm going to say %b, which will evaluate the first number, and because there's a comma, it'll then read the second number, and there's another comma. So it will evaluate the first number plus the second number. In this case, you'll say 5 plus 8 equals 13, and then it substitutes 13 into this last little d. I hope you found that really useful.